well, you can't leave us with just that. So how do we begin peeling back those layers, man? Like, I'm so with you on that.
Yeah.
And the way that people construct their sense of self and beliefs and values, and it's like this just crazy rat's nest of unidentified, unexplained beliefs, feelings, reactions, long-held wounds that have never been dealt with from your childhood. I mean, but that act of peeling that stuff back, I think, is also an act of rewriting.
Yes.
So it's like, I've identified this narrative. Now, what narrative do I change it to? And so going back to your driving analogy, you've got this thinking brain whose job is to basically rewrite the map of a past experience. How do you help people take control of that? Or do you have thoughts around how they can take control of that? Are there, like, I would say I have a very strong thesis about whatever you rewrite. Like, the guiding principle should not be a guiding principle of objective truth, because I think people are atrocious at figuring out what is actually objectively true. So if you could, that would be amazing. But since you can't, focus entirely on what's empowering. So using your language, what moves the needle to something positive.
TomTom really seems to be onto something from watching all of his shit over the years, is that TomTom seems to be really obsessed with trying to figure out how do you get human beings to unlock? Because he'll see people like Walt Disney or whatever. Well, he'll see people that can get out of their own way, get out of their own matrix, and go doing powerful things. So TomTom with SEFE is really locked on to Walt Disney in the sense of, like, TomTom wants to build like a movie studio and stuff to where he can communicate these matrix level messages of positivity and growth, and you can do it through storytelling, through movies, because TomTom knows that his saviors, like TISE, block banging people, is not how you really transform somebody's
he knows
life.
that the NF is where people will get
it's
moved.
NF. So
That's
TomTom
cool.
has figured that out in his journey, which is why he's putting all of his money and time into his movie making industry or whatever. Behind the scenes of the Impact Theory show is just the tip of the iceberg of what TomTom's actually doing. So with that in mind, if you really know what TomTom is about the past 10 years or whatever it is, where he's on this journey of trying, because he's sitting around seeing all these different people in his life that very few like break out and go do something great. He sees the potential in so many of his friends and workers, and they just end up getting stuck back on their own shit. So he's constantly trying to like save his sister or save his friends or save these past people or these current people that he's saved humanity of. Why are they stuck? Because he got out. Because he looks at himself, he's like, I used to be stuck like this. I used to be a real giant asshole.
So why me and not you? Or what is the unlock? And he is trying to constantly figure out the unlock.
He's constantly like coming back, trying to break other people out of jail because he got out of jail. And so the one thing that he was saying with that in the context, one of the things that he was saying in the interview is that he kept asking Mark, like, how do people get a reset on their worldview? Because one thing, when I was really listening to TomTom, it's kind of like, and so here's my analogies, so I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it seems to be like we as people are like empty computers when we are born. Like, oh, you're type 139, you're type 128, like you're whatever type you are. But then like there's a huge, like I got the Mac, I got the IBM. It's like, okay, are you going to download Safari? Are you going to download Chrome? Are you going to download Microsoft Paint? Like what, as soon as you get a brand new computer, what stock programs do you quickly...
What user interface?
What software do you load up? It's like, oh, I loaded up Christianity. Why? Because that's what my parents was. Oh, I loaded up Republican. Why? Because I was born in California in the fucking 70s. Like so you just get all these default...
Stock programs.
Stock worldviews. And so what TomTom and Mark are kind of pulling apart a little bit is that, hey, guess what, genius? By the time you're 25 or so, the fucking bullshit worldview that you accidentally downloaded when you were fucking 5 ain't working out for you, is it? And so what TomTom is talking about is a very painful journey of going down and be like, is Christianity really real? Or whatever religion you're fucking grown up in, or maybe atheism, or like whatever, like whatever worldview that you've just accepted, you've just why? Because it's easy. What do I do with bad guys? Oh, my worldview says this. What do I do with car accidents? Oh, my world. So it's like the worldview gives you easy answers. Because what are you going to do? Go process one-to-one every single event in your own life? It take fucking forever. You're going to like hand code and email stuff. No, just download Gmail, right? But then you don't realize that there's problems and bugs and limitations in Gmail
that end up causing you more problems later on.
And so it's not that you don't keep Gmail or Christianity or whatever fucking bullshit worldview you had early on. Like maybe you keep it, maybe you don't. But like what they're talking about is going, hey, notice that in your life, you
keep hitting a wall. And this is where the phrase "don't trip over the same thing twice" for us comes from, because we're like, that's fine that you're gonna be messy, you're gonna have things that aren't perfect, you're gonna get started and it's not gonna be perfect, but do put some blocks in for yourself, some standards in for yourself, so that when things aren't going well, you're allowed to wake up and not just go straight unconscious. Like wake up and go, this is the 5th time I've dealt with this problem. It's me.
Right. That's what they're saying. That's why TomTom is like, how do we untangle this rat's nest? Because TomTom's like, people like only go, from what we see, not even 0.001% level deep. Like that's what we see all fucking day long.
Yeah.
Is very few people go level 2, level 3 percentage level deep. Like you got to go to fucking David Goggins level hell if you really want to get this stuff. Which means you're pulling out all the worldviews. This takes a couple of years. Like you got to get way down, but then you're done. You get it all pulled out, all this hell pulled out, and then you get like a new worldview built in. And so TomTom was even saying, is like, yeah, fuck objective reality. We don't even know. It's like, how do you then rebuild up a worldview that works for yourself? I would challenge TomTom there and say like, I think rightfully so. TomTom is like, yeah, there's no way we can see objective reality, which you're fucking right. But I think this code could actually help with that we can work together and be like,
yeah.
I think we can, as a human species, get a little bit closer to objective reality going forward the next 20 years if we're all using this as kind of a map a little bit. Because you can know, ooh, that is too much feeling. That is too much control.
Right.
And I can fucking prove that objectively on the thing, not based on my savers, your savers, right?
Yeah, right.
So anyway, I think what TomTom is onto is possible in our generation or the next. But what they're getting onto is like when you're hitting a wall, it's you got to go just to the level of hell to get rid of it's years of unlearning. What worldviews, what limitations do I have stock that I took on years ago that I got to get all these out? And then it is building back up a new worldview.
Yeah.
And that's what all the heroes are saying. Byron Cage is like, oh, I have a new worldview. It's there, done.
Yeah.
I run it through my, flipping it on its ass 4-point bullshit.
Is it true? What's the
and that's the example of like that crazy shit works for her.
Yes, it does.
So she deleted her old worldviews and then built up this new one. Now what you find with Byron Katie and David Bayer and TomTom and Tony Robbins and Jim Carrey, et cetera, or Russell Brand, you're like, they all built up their own subjective works for them, weird ass world, but there's a lot of overlaps there.
There's a lot of overlaps. That's what we're trying to look for. We're trying to look for the NI similarities between all of these because they all are the same. Now they have their special method of doing it, but they're all the same. It's you do narrow it down. There is a positive and a negative emotion. You do need to stare at it. You need to own why I'm in a negative state. You need to own the reasons for that. You need to own choosing positive emotional states and moving yourself to that. How do you do that? It is practice. And what practice do you use? Oh, David Bayer does this and Byron Katie does that. There are extremely simplified ways of doing that. Oh, well, I'm not motivated to do that. Great. Then what you need to do is go simulate out your future of if you take the actions that you take today, where will you be in the future? Because you're still stuck in the I'm cozy right now state. You won't be in the future. You today is fucking over you in the future so intensely that you will emotionally care someday. So you do need to get to the point where you are emotionally stimulating as well as you just gotta be fucking done. And like Byron Katie took it all the fucking way. And so did David Bayer. But like Byron Katie took it all the fucking way. I mean, you don't get that much breakage of your worldview until you choose to consciously go, I'm fucking losing it. Everything that I believed would get me to, the next decade positively is just absolutely breaking apart and falling apart. Therefore, you do get to the point where you stop trusting self altogether. You start losing the ability to love and addictively, swallow in that subjective perspective because everybody just loves their subjective perspective. This subjective perspective is what's going to save the world, and you just get so gobbled in on that. And it's not until the outside world just crashes in and smacks you upside the head and go, that stupid subjective worldview that you have abusively that you've been attacking everyone with, it's not actually going to work out for you. And it's once somebody finally can see that for themselves, they're like, I need to adjust. And once they finally start adjusting, yes, it is the same type of things that get them moving forward. It is understanding your brain. It is understanding those two parts of your brain. It is being able to take in information. It is being able to narrow down. But it's like going forward with the positive mindset of this is solvable. My worldview can adjust. I just got a lot of work to do.
Right.